Hello and welcome to another episode of Topline Talks, a Mackie Myers podcast hosted by myself, Owen Myers, and delighted to be rejoined by...
Me, Jenna.
Hey! Jenna is back and in the mix, and it's delighted to have her back in the podcast studio with myself. For anyone that's subscribing or listening for the first time, we do this podcast to provide career, sector, talent insights to anyone that is interested in all things people and business. We've brought a selection of guests from a variety of different sectors, providing insights as to how they've climbed the ladder to get to the C-suite into different markets. Today, we are absolutely delighted to be joined by Dr. Tomas Baldwin, who is the Chief Executive and Co-founder of Guilford Laboratories, who are a UCL spin-out business that have been going for a couple of years now and trying to fight a good fight and get the business off the ground. Tom, thanks ever so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Very good. Very good. So disclaimer, we do have an interest in Tom. We actually worked with Tom back in the day. And this is where I want to start the conversation, because you did biomedical science at undergrad?
Yeah, biomed.
Biomed science in undergrad. Came to me when I was running a division in London saying, I don't want to be in a lab anymore. I've had enough of it. I want to do something people orientated. And we gave him a job in recruitment, which actually he did pretty well at. And winding forward a number of years, he's now running a diagnostic BioTech startup. So I'd like to start the conversation there. You left it and you've gone back to it, and now here we are. So give us a bit of insight into your stories, why you've done what you've done, and then we'll go into the journey.
Yeah, it feels a bit random, I guess, but absolutely back that time we spent in Michael Page, fully wanted to get into that people-oriented sales piece, completely different to what I'd done at undergrad. Liked the science, didn't like the lab work. In hindsight, probably what I was exposed to and where I was doing it, but wanted a completely fresh start. Thought sales, get out, hone a bit of skills there as well, because this is a completely unique skill set to be able to deploy, and spent a good 11, 12 months with you guys doing that. Some ups and downs, but thoroughly enjoyed it, and really very much time well spent. Picked up quite a unique skill set now, particularly with the sort of life sciences background and sales, what I've clung on to from what I learned there, but had that sort of nagging feeling that probably wasn't done with science and life sciences. So left sales, left recruitment, went back then to do a master's university, and just had such a different experience to what I'd had in my undergrad, different area, different techniques, and just loved it. Spent 12 months in the lab, just working my socks off to complete this project, and from there pretty much decided, actually, do you know what, this is something I want to do.
Yeah.
And from there I was very fortunate to be able to transition on to do a PhD at Great Ormond Street, working with two fantastic guys, Simon Heels and Simon Eaton. And we just spent 4 years doing really cool stuff. So working on therapies for kids with epilepsy, kids with rare metabolic diseases, and just sort of publishing science and doing all sorts of cool stuff there. So got a real handle on what you can actually do in life sciences. And just looking back now, I'm glad I had the experience I had in undergrad to go and take that break from it, because I think perhaps if I just sort of muddled through, I wouldn't have had the perspective I've gained. But to be able to go back and tread that path now has been awesome. So did finish my PhD, obviously had a bit of a break with COVID, which again gave me a bit more time to hone and refine the message. And from there went straight into academia. So working as a research scientist for a few years.
Yeah.
A different group, managed to find the only other Welsh man in the building and started working with him.
Yeah.
And again, just being at Great Ormond Street as well, just really quite close to patients, the clinicians. The fact they're at Great Ormond Street, they don't always know what's wrong with these kids. So how can we help figure that out, whether it's new diagnostics or new tests to see if they're getting better or how the treatment's working, and just found that to be, and still find that to be, really quite fulfilling and really exciting as well.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it's been quite a journey. I've followed it with a lot of interest. So you all got on pretty well when you were with us and all the rest of it. But it's been truly impressive. Can I just wind back, because I think this is quite interesting angle for people. Can you talk through the process of actually getting onto a PhD program and actually how that actually works? Because we've met loads of people that have either gone back to it later in life or actually are still sort of climbing the path sort of year to year. But if you can just shed a little bit of light on that.
As probably a recurring theme through my career, I've been very lucky in certain circumstances. So
make your own luck.
There is that. But the guy I was doing my masters with after I finished it with you guys at Page happened to know the two guys who were hiring PhD student. Interviewed, didn't get it. Week later, they get me on the phone again saying, actually, the person's dropped out. Do you want it? Absolutely, I do. And sort of didn't look back then. But it's as you say, it's putting your hat in the ring, and it's putting a performance on when you're interviewing and all these pieces. But it was still quite hard. I think looking back now, I probably applied for 30 PhDs all in throughout the year doing the masters. Dead set on going to the States, nothing back from that. In hindsight, awesome move. But endless applications, and then finally got a little bit of luck and a little bit of a leg up to go and meet the Simons.
Yeah.
And
so it is a little bit of a numbers game.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. So, they're quite accessible in terms of seeing what's out there. Getting your foot in the door is a different piece. It will vary depending on if you've even got the background for them to want to look at you, and that's a recurring issue in science, I think. If you don't have technique X or experience Y, then it's an immediate no. We're actually finding in science you're more interested in good scientists, so people who can apply themselves, people who can learn, pick up new techniques, new therapeutic areas. And I think that's a bit of a weakness in the sector. And when we go about our recruitment now, it's very much what we're about. It's great if you have the experience, but if you don't and we feel like you're competent, then we'll take a chance.
Yeah, that's interesting. So actually like hiring for the person rather than necessarily the sort of the background.
How much of that has come from your year in recruitment?
Yeah, quite a lot, I think. I think quite a lot of what I do, and it sounds a bit odd, but how I even go about my day-to-day still now is informed on skills I picked up doing sales, because it is sales in recruitment, how we talk to people, even now how we run the business, how we take our sales calls, how we deal with staff, hiring. We've learned quite a lot from that year, and it's a bit odd to think back on it now because it was a relatively short period of time, but learned quite a lot.
I mean, anyone that's gone into the industry, the first year, 18 months is A, bloody hard, but B, you learn a hell of a lot along the way. So I'm glad it's teed you up. Because we do say that to new people. We've actually just taken on our new grad intake, and whether they're all going to be in the industry in 20 years' time, who knows? But I fundamentally believe there's lots of skills that you develop that you could apply to later life. But anyway, this isn't an advert for the recruitment industry. But,
it can be.
It can be. So if we wind forward a bit closer to the present day, so can you talk to us a little bit about, because we work with generally, our area of interest in particular, in a lot of areas is small to medium sized growing businesses where actually we can genuinely add value. And but where you are currently, actually, you don't need a huge amount of people at the moment. And actually, it's just getting the thing off the ground and all this sort of thing. So typically we talk to people probably a year, 2, 3 years down the line and actually miss out on this really interesting bit where you go from something which is quite interesting and looks like it works to, there's probably a company here and can we scale it to add as much value to the world, right? So it'd be really interesting if you could take us through a little bit of the journey as to how you kind of went from the research area and the stuff that you were doing through to, okay, let's set up a company.
Yeah, and I think it's I don't know how unusual it is, but in UCL in particular, we were the first service-based spin-out company to come out. So we sort of tread quite an unusual path, but very much predicated on 30 years track record from my other co-founders, so a guy called Professor Kevin Mills and Dr. Wendy Hayward as well. So they've been running the translational mass spec team, so the specific science we do at Great Ormond Street for quite a while. So 30 years in Kevin's case. So 20 tests translated into point of care at the NHS over that time. Bunch of cutting edge research coming out of the lab consistently for, again, 20, 30 years. And as I joined, it was just after COVID. So we were working on some really quite unique science, obviously all COVID based, but had applications outside of just COVID. So gene therapy, enzyme replacement therapy, all of these things that our kids at Great Ormond Street get treated with. And we had patented it. We were just about to roll out our COVID version of our technology to the NHS, and the government decided they didn't want to test for COVID anymore. So sort of fell flat on our face a little bit there. This was all academic, but took a little bit of time to regroup. We had a patent, we had a technology, we had a very good team, and the NHS could no longer just take it off our hands. So between the three of us and some of our wider team felt if we didn't do it, if we didn't take it and validate it and roll it out, then nobody would. And we thought that was something that we needed to take on. So, it took us quite a while, so probably 18 months in the planning to get what is now GSL off the ground. And very much taken behind the track record the guys have had. They've been there doing this kind of work for a long time. But the aim for us then was to take this new piece of technology that we're working on, among a couple of other pieces, and take those ourselves, clinically validate, work with the NHS to bring them to point of care, and that's how we came about forming this company then, which felt weird as we were doing it. That we were going to be the ones that were going to have to take this on, but now it feels like it was the most obvious choice to take.
Amazing.
That's amazing. So if it actually weren't for COVID, you may never have spun this out into an actual company.
I regularly thank Boris Johnson for scrapping all things COVID.
Yeah.
But yeah, indeed, if they had just sort of taken it off our hands, then it would be used for routine COVID antibody monitoring, and we would have moved on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's unbelievable.
So without getting, I'm sure you've done this in plenty of presentations and whatnot. So taking the scientific stuff out of there, can you give us like the sales pitch? So like, what does your product do, or what can it be used for?
Yeah. So we have 3 diagnostic programs we're working on. So at the face of it, we're a MedTech company. So we're working on diagnostics, blood-based diagnostics to improve standard of care, and some of these are first in class. The lead piece, as we talked about, is antibody generated, so antibody response. And if we go back to COVID, remember everybody was really worried about, did you have an antibody to the vaccine? Are you safe? Can you go out and see your friends? We've taken that now and translated it to other key areas where this sort of antibody response is really pivotal. So can kids get on a gene therapy trial? Can kids start on any approved therapy? And same for routine monitoring of patients who've taken protein therapeutics, and turn that sort of COVID piece into something now that's become a bit more of a platform that we are taking services that already exist, but upgrading them to new technology, more quicker, better, faster, and cheaper as well for the NHS clinical trials to adopt. And outside of that, then a little bit further down the line, we're working on blood tests for Parkinson's disease in collaboration with the NHS and some of the neurologists in Queen Square, and also a blood test for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is the most common genetic heart disease.
Yeah.
Typically, when a football player drops dead on the pitch, then they've not known they've had this.
Yeah.
So really quite key pieces of the technology we're working on that massively underserved at the moment.
Amazing. But where could it go? Because it sounds like the principles could actually be applied to lots of different areas. So I guess, did you have a view as to kind of the roadmap as to the area that you're in?
Yeah. So in terms of where we are now in our roadmap, so our antibody technology that we're working on, we're moving now to have this regulatory approved by back end of this year. So the ambition is we're going live on the NHS in partnership with the NHS to assess the clinical utility of this new technology for these patients with rare disease. So probably over the next 2 years, we'll get a good handle on how well it works in a real world setting, how much it's improving standard of care for patients, and importantly, how much easier it's making things for clinicians as well to get this kind of new information.
Yeah.
And the ambition then to roll that out globally. So the key benefit for the technology we're working on, so it's mass spec. Technology's been around for a long time, but it's constantly being updated and updated. And the kind of mass spec we do now is so high throughput, it's so quick that we can turn around quite significant numbers on our own in the centre we already have. So the ability for us to roll this out, obviously UK-wide, EU, America, becomes quite feasible. We're still quite a small team. We're not talking about testing everybody in the world, but we're talking about serving a really key population. So for us now to take that first product to inpatient use and then European and global rollout in the next few years is something we're really excited about.
Yeah.
And again, the piece on the NHS, they've been brilliant now. So we have collaborations in place with University College London hospitals, where we are working in partnership with them to develop these technologies. So personnel and equipment on site in the NHS, and really accelerating us quite significantly. So we're thrilled with that as a partnership.
That's amazing. How do you, or who decides what the pool of patients are that you trial this technology out on in the next phase?
Yeah, so for each of our programs, there are a number or one or two clinicians that we bring in, so people who are really key opinion leaders in the area and have been there and done it. So we work very closely with them on how we design these clinical validation studies, be that in Parkinson's or hypertrophic cardiomyopathy or antibodies. And we also are starting now to work more with the regulators. So our Parkinson's and HCM programs both have FDA breakthrough device designation. So we've gone to the FDA, said this is what we're working on, this is what it looks like at the moment. And the FDA have come back to us with a few questions and agreed that the data looks sound. It's in the best interest of patients and there's some degree of clinical utility. So giving us the sort of go ahead to go on and develop these further. But a key part of that is, we have these sprint sessions with the FDA, and they're not going to tell us what to do, but we'll tell them our plans and get a bit of feedback on how we're approaching it. But outside of that, then this is a big field, particularly within diagnostics. So there's always the opportunity to see how other people are doing it as well and inform on your decisions there. And first regulatory approved Alzheimer's blood test out was a few months ago, Fujire Bio. So we're not in Alzheimer's, we're in Parkinson's, but we can sort of use that to shape how we're designing our studies and how we're approaching it. So that's really useful as well.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily competing with one another, but you can still use each other's information and data to help.
I would say it's probably very competitive.
Okay.
In the Alzheimer's field, there are several people working towards the same goal.
Right.
Parkinson's, again, quite a few companies. There's a CSF test that's being used in the States. There are skin tests. Lots of people working on different kinds of blood tests. Our approach is a little bit different, a little bit more high throughput, a little bit more cost effective. And the accuracy so far looks really good. So we are competing, and this is the nature of it. All we're focusing on is performance of our test, how easily we can integrate it clinically, and how we can roll it out. So worry about ourselves and let the rest take care of itself.
God, it's so interesting, isn't it? How are you funded up until this point? Where does the investment come from?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mix. So, we officially formed the business in October 2023. Did a very small seed funding round there where we brought in quite a few key opinion leaders in cardiology, obviously one of our big areas, specialists that we work with, and some friends and family. So use that pre-seed, if you will, to start getting our operations off the ground, because what we do is super capital intensive. The machinery is expensive.
Of course.
The people are all PhDs and come with that. So we wanted to very much vet the model we're working with, the route we want to go in before we pull the trigger on it. So use that pre-seed funding round to sort of start getting those processes in place. and again did another slightly larger seed funding round towards the back end of last year, and this was more to start bringing staff on. Now we've got the idea, we know how we want to execute it. Let's start bringing the people, putting them in place, getting some machinery in place to start executing on that. And now in a pretty good place to start moving towards clinical validation. So I'm about to fly to America to do our seed funding round, or second seed funding round, to fund the clinical validation studies in Parkinson's, in HCM as well. So very much leveraging people in the area, so people down the line that have an interest in these tests come to market, key opinion leaders, all these sorts of things. But outside of that as well, also doing quite a lot of work in the grant space as well. So received a grant from a company last year actually to accelerate one of our programs. Some smaller grants here or there, and some news that we'll be publishing in the next few weeks. But sort of a mixed bag then of different funding streams in order to keep us going. The grants are great, they're non-dilutive, and allow us to really target quite heavily some of these programs. But starting to move towards bigger funding raises now, particularly with guys in the States. And I think the other part of that we haven't talked about is the other side of our business. So obviously we have our diagnostics, very much the key ambition and area of focus for us to bring these to market. But we also run what we call core labs, so GSL core labs. So whole purpose of this business is to supply services to pharmaceutical companies. So we're working on biomarker-based diagnostics here. We apply the same technology to support preclinical development all the way through to late-stage clinical trials for wide variety of companies in EU, US, Asia now, because 60% of these trials are going to have some form of protein or lipid or metabolite biomarker. So using that revenue generated there within our core lab to fund the diagnostics then as well. So a little bit of bootstrapping.
Very smart. Whose idea was that?
So actually, it's a very good point. So we were super fortunate when we spun out to be supported, I guess incubated by another UCL spin-out called Myocardium. So they're a software company from UCL, all cardiologists working on AI for echo and cardiac MRI. We've been working with their CEO academically for a very long time. And when he sort of got an idea of what we were looking to do, he was already 2 years down the line with Myocardium. So he and a couple of the other guys on the board at Myocardium came in to support us, be that incubation for functions we didn't have, HR, accounting, just allowed us to focus on the science, the routes we wanted to go down, how we're going to get that to market. So enormously helpful. But we then saw the Myocardium guys are doing the same thing, so software on one hand, core lab services on the other, and just completely pinched that idea.
Yeah, it's genius.
So we'll say it was my idea now.
I'd like to pick up on that two angles really. I guess the first is how do things work with it's UCLB, isn't it? I guess that kind of the initial sponsor to some extent. I'd be really interested to see how that kind of works, how involved they are, and where the IP sits, and all that good stuff. But then I'm really interested in how their whole community works, because I think they've got technically about 70 different investment spin-outs in their portfolio. Obviously, all at various stages. So, be really interested to understand: is there a community? Sounds like there might be a little bit, ad hoc. How that works and kind of what your experience has been.
Yeah, I think UCL by and large have been great, very supportive. As we mentioned, we were the first company that's kind of wanted to do services in life sciences. I'm sure there've been other services companies, but in our sector, we were the sort of first. So worked quite a lot with us to ensure that we could get up and running doing that. So helped us negotiate operating out of the academic centre initially, which we wouldn't have gotten, if we weren't a UCL spin-out. Inordinately helpful, moving us towards licensing our key piece of tech, which is the antibody piece, and continue to support now. So, we have regular catch-ups with the guys. So work with Catriona O'Rourke at UCLB, and she's been brilliant. and starting probably to build that wider community now. So obviously ourselves and myocardium have been quite closely linked, but starting to get a handle on who the other teams are within the sort of ecosystem and how they've been through it and what they're doing. But it's also been quite nice getting a bit of publicity internally from UCLB doing what we're doing, because we're getting other academics come to us now and asking us how we did it and how they could do it and how we could make things easier. And to be able to do that and collaborate, that's been quite cool. But very much promoted then by UCL. So, as we mentioned, they're hosting quarterly, catch-ups, coffee catch-ups. We go in and talk about what we're doing, how we're doing it. And it's starting to, I wouldn't say Americanize the approach to research, but I think historically the way we've approached it academically is to do something really cool, publish it, move on, or publish something else in the area and move on. Whereas the Americans would have patented, formed a company, and off they would go to commercialization. And you're sort of starting to see that a little bit now in UCL, particularly. UCL, I think, are becoming very good at this. Obviously, Oxford and Cambridge have historically been very good at this. So it's nice to see more academics thinking this way now within UCL as well. But again, it has been driven in quite a substantial part by UCLB.
Yeah. What's your experience of being in US? Because obviously, as you say, they're just leaps ahead, and it's the world of healthcare, right? So, what's your experience of being in going and talking to partners, academics, potential investors, etc.?
Yeah, by and large, really positive. So, our core labs business, I think 80% of our customer base are in the States.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the trials are, it's where all the companies are. So we spend a huge amount of time there. And it's been brilliant, to be honest, to be in that sort of area where, nothing's a problem. If it's a problem, then we'll work around it. And, it's solution oriented. And it's quite refreshing to see things like that and the drive that these guys have.
Very un-British, yeah.
But it's been a pleasure to work with a lot of these people. Not had too much contact with the academics. It's all been company based, and I think it is obviously a brutal sector, particularly at the minute with the sort of pendulum swing of funding and all these pieces, and there's some real sad stories about some of the companies, but by and large, I think the way they approach the work they do, they all care very deeply, and they're all driven to do really cool things. So it's been a real pleasure to be a part of.
Whereabouts are you going next week?
Next week, we're at Montreal first. We're over to San Francisco, and then we're down to LA.
Yeah,
we're going to Idaho. Never been to Idaho. And then across to Boston before we come home.
Yeah,
and then a few weeks, and we're back to New York.
Yeah,
but we grow up here loving all things American, and you want to go to New York, you want to go to LA, so to be able to spend quite a bit of time there has been great as well.
How do they handle the Welsh accent?
Well, I've not given you my anglicised accent yet today. It might come out later, but I do have to slow down. I do have to put a bit of English on. I get called Irish quite often. I'm not sure where that comes from, but I've had a few instances where subtitles could have been quite helpful.
I can imagine.
I thought they'd have loved it. I thought they'd have loved a Welsh accent.
I don't think they see a tremendous amount of us. They see a lot of Irish, see a lot of English, and we're somewhere in between.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, by and large, we've managed.
Yeah. How do you go from, a science undergrad, a year in recruitment, back into a lab, and then you're now pitching for investment, having these conversations, which I can't imagine you've necessarily been taught how to do them. You have to self-teach yourself, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think this is where we go back to what you pick up. I tell my team all the time, if you can sell government accountants to the government, then I think you can sell anything. But which is what I used to do. But took a lot of those learnings. How you initiate these conversations, how you broach difficult things, and just never really let it go. But it's it's just a confidence thing. You know, we're passionate about what we're doing. We like to think we know what we're talking about, and we just let that take care of itself. We believe in the mission, and people are either on board or they're not. And it's try not to take any more stress outside of that.
I mean, like you say, confidence. It's got to be amazing how much you've developed in, like, I don't know how long it's been since we worked together.
We'll not
10
talk about that.
I think it's been about 10 years.
10
It might be
years?
10 years.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
Yeah, you know, it's been ups and downs, but I've been giving advice to our master's students now and our PhDs coming through, don't know what they want to do. I said, just go work in sales for a bit. You know, you'll hate it initially, you'll get good at it, you'll be bad at it again, and then you'll figure it out. But I think the learnings you get there in a really short period of time and not things you can pick up elsewhere. And then you see the people who do this sort of stuff that maybe haven't had that sort of background, and it becomes quite clear. And it's a really invaluable skill set to pick up, I think.
No, interesting. Well, talk to me a little bit about your job now as, you know, running the company, right? So obviously that's what Jenna and I do for kind of our business. So we can talk with, you know, with an understanding. So like, where are you now spending the majority of your time? How do you spread your time? And who have you got internally doing the rest of it, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, so most of my time is spent at the minute, obviously, fundraising, investor relations piece, and strategy there. The other aspects very much operational. So, you know, we're looking to grow and expand. So how we do that, where is that going to be? You know, we're looking at opening offices in Liverpool for the back office staff who are non-lab based, and how do we go about managing that, and more lab space for the team in London, a lot of time there, and then just time with the team, because we're doing quite a variety of things in some quite technical areas, and the lab staff we've got are head and shoulders better than me. I just like to be there to support, and some of the pieces they're doing are awesome, but we've managed to divvy this up quite nicely. So, you know, with Kevin Mills, who's the Chief Scientific Officer, very much handling a lot of the core lab clinical trial pieces and some of the niche science we're doing there. Wendy Haywood, very much on the clinical validation of the diagnostic pieces. So the science very much looked after by, you know, some of the world's best in the area. So more than happy to leave that go. Leaves me then to focus on growing the commercial side of it within the core labs team. We just hired our head of sales. We've had our chief commercial officer join a few months ago. So building that area and just ensuring that what we're building is sustainable. We're moving in the right direction, and it's a good place to work, which can potentially get swept under the rug quite often. And that's a really key piece for us.
Well, no matter what sector you're in and what you know, what problems you're trying to solve, you need people turning up, motivated, and wanting to be there, right? So that's like number one on the job description. So, how have you found that aspect of it? Because actually, you know, being part of Great Ormond Street and UCL and you know, big organisations, to then trying to create a culture of a small, high potential organisation.
Yeah, I think academia is a lot more fractured than perhaps it might come across. So the mass spec team we were born out of was 15 people, I think, which is quite large for an academic team. Actually, generally they're around sort of 6 to 10, sometimes less. Your department's a little bit bigger, but pretty much you operate within your unit. So it's not been too different to take what we were doing and where we were to start building that and growing it. It's just keeping, quite an important piece for us, actually keeping that academic feel alive as well. So if we have an idea, if we want to do a little bit of new science, then go and do that. Let's see what we get out of it, fostering that sort of innovative culture that you would have in academia. Let's keep that with us as we grow and scale. But it's just the dynamic shift then going from academia into the commercial world.
Yeah. So what does it look like in 5 years? What's the plan?
That's a good question. So, and things we're talking about at the minute. So, you know, we're probably 2 years away from market access for our Parkinson's test, you know, provided we hit our milestones for clinical performance. So 2 years' time, we've got a blood test at market for PD, working with clinicians in the UK. That'll be rolled out in the UK. Outside of that, then it's how we grow and scale operations within US, within Europe, Asia, and working on potentially partnerships to do that. So 5 years is a long time. I think we're very heavily focused on the next 2 to 3. Get our tests through clinical validation, get them in patient use, and then focus on global rollout and how we go about that. So working on those partnerships now, working on the all of the key pieces we need, supply chains, in order to make sure that when we're ready to go, we can go. Core lab team slightly different. It's a service-based business that we're growing and scaling. The ambition is to become one of the biggest providers of mass spec biomarker-based services globally. We've put a very good team in place in order to do that. So it's just ensuring that as that's growing, it's sustainable, we're keeping the right people in the right place, and the sky's the limit.
Very good.
It feels very scalable because once you get access to the market, well, Parkinson's in itself is a huge market in itself, I imagine. But if you can replicate your technology into different areas, it's endless opportunity, surely.
Yeah, it's the nice piece about what we do. So take the Parkinson's and the cardiac piece. The baseline technology is exactly the same. We switch the targets, we switch the indication, and we roll it out. So it's not just individual biomarkers. We're looking at panels of proteins, and we're using machine learning on the back end. We have an inordinately impressive head of machine learning in Jenny Halkvist, and she pulls all of this data together to create algorithms that can sort of turn something that is incredibly complex into something that's super accurate and also really easily interpretable by clinicians, by patients. So it's exactly right. It's not the aim is not just to be one and done. It's we've got Parkinson's, let's take that to market, let's integrate that. Same for HCM and the cardiac. But the benefit of still having these really close academic links is that we know that the team are working on a variety of other indications that once they pass the relevant hurdles, that we can adopt and we can start commercializing and taking that through. So the word IP factory gets thrown around, and how you continuously develop new science and integrate new tests into the company and then into inpatient use. But it sort of starts to look quite real then, that we can foster quite significant change by just keeping this sort of train of new tests and new science coming through.
As a recruitment podcast, I'd be really interested to know at what stage you're at in actually mapping the organogram. So next year after, 3 years down the line. Because again, sometimes it's too late. So people are business is going well, they get approval or they get investment and it's all kicking off, but then they're not thought about the people side of it. And then you're kind of reacting to trying to generate a network, a talent pool and start hiring. So it'd be really interesting to see what advice you've been given and where you're at in the journey of trying to build that kind of future organogram. Because typically, if you're from academia and you've not spent time in recruitment or science, actually it's kind of a afterthought. A lot of the time.
Yeah, I think we were probably in danger of that, going too far and needing to backfill to take pressure off. But it's something, particularly over the last sort of 6 to 9 months, we've been really sort of clear on how we want to grow, how we want to scale. So, as we mentioned, the technical team's up to 7 now, and that's pretty good for the developmental programs we have on. But now we're building outside of that. I mentioned commercials being built, project management's being built, QA's being built, finance, all in view of, in the next 6 months, the workload not only the core labs team are going to have on, but also clinical validation studies for the diagnostics. We're going to need these people. So it's making sure that we're bringing people on the right time, because, we're still a startup and we can't have people twiddling their thumbs.
But you can't just burn through cash and have no one doing any work. So,
exactly. So we have been quite careful about how we do it and when we bring these people on, but starting now to sort of grow and scale the non-technical team in order to be able to deal with what we have coming up. So it's a very, very key area of focus for us, and how that grows, where these people are as well. Obviously the technical team are down here. support team can be in Liverpool, and they probably will be.
Why Liverpool? What's the backdrop to that?
So a couple of reasons. So
got nothing against Liverpool, by the way. I'm just it's a long way from London.
So the company I mentioned, Mycardium, who were incubating us, and 3 of their boards still on our board now in James, Anthony, and Ed. They are headquartered in Liverpool.
Okay, yeah.
And actually, just a fact of them being in a similar area to us, 2 years further down the line, could sort of pre-validate it for us that the talent pool is there, the ability to scale your operations is there, and sort of de-risk that for us a little bit. We don't need the lab scientists up there, but project managers, quality, finance, brilliant pool of people up there. And generally then office space availability in Liverpool and all these sorts of things that is a big issue in London becomes slightly less of an issue when you're not in London.
Yeah.
And Anthony on our board will kill me for saying this, but he is very much Mr. Liverpool. So
okay, fine.
Anything he can do to improve the greater Merseyside area, he will do.
Yeah, very good. Okay, well, we're coming towards the end of our time. One sort of big ticket question I'd like to ask you is, if you were to have your time again, so like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, before it all kicked off, what advice do you wish you had?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the big one would be back yourself probably a little bit more. Not go bigger and faster, but, bit more confident in decisions, and some of the things we're doing now we probably could have done a year ago. But, it's a first-time founder, and it's risk, and it's investors, and all of these pieces where it was a bit of a unvalidated idea that we needed to go and go and prove, which we've done now. And it's 2020, isn't it? Now we look back and think, well, we should have just gone for it. But I think just a bit more confidence in the decision making would have been helpful. But I think we still end up in the same place we are now. Not to say we've done everything right, but I think it would alleviate a lot of stress.
Any massive screw ups you're happy sharing with the audience?
Do you know, nothing comes to mind, unbelievably. I think, and this is not down to me or just down to me at all, we've had a great network, obviously, of people who've been there and done it within the last couple of years that have been giving great advice. The advisory network that we have within the UK has been brilliant and probably steered us away from a few things that might have been calamitous. But again, just sort of credit to the people that we have either on board or supporting us has really helped us quite a bit. So fortunately, nothing to report there just yet. I'll keep you posted.
Okay, sure. Well, I think it just goes to show the value of networking, right? And connections and seeking out advice and things like that. I think, testament to it. So congratulations on what you got to so far.
Thank you very much.
And I think it's really interesting insight as to someone who is driving a business from the ground up. There's a lot of interest. I mean, because our business is in London, Oxford, and Cambridge, and we talk to a lot of people that are interested in the spin out and startup community coming from those sort of ecosystems. So fascinating insights from someone that's living and breathing it and fighting the good fight. So we really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Last question quickly. Is there anything that you want to say to prospective talent? Because obviously if you guys are going to be hiring a lot as you continue to grow, why you?
Why us? Yeah, I think it's, obviously we think we're onto something that's not only really exciting, but genuinely has a chance to impact hundreds and thousands of people, millions of people globally, across neurodegenerative disease, across cardiac disease. I think it's just a chance to be involved in something really quite exciting. So send us your CV.
Fire Mackie Myers. No. Well, look, that's everything. Thank you so much. It's been great and very impressive to see where you've come from your graduate recruitment day. So
thank you very much.
Congratulations. For our listeners, if you enjoyed what you heard, please do hit subscribe. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and of course on our website. For now, that has been Topline Talks. Thank you very much.
Cheerio.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very good.